as you go into watching this video, there is a couple of videos back that are also about conversations between me and Pastor M. Please go back and watch if you haven't already and enjoy this video. For others, the same way how others view taxes, I feel for others also view tithes.
Oh, as a tax.
Tithe as a tax. And
it's like God is that mafia. We pay him and then he leaves us alone.
we bribe our entrance to heaven for blessings. Yes. So I feel like for some our generation, for the youth, we never really understood what tithes are for. Why we tithe? Why we tithe? What is tithe? And talk to us about the aspect.
Okay, the word tithe means a tenth. And it really is the biblical principle of giving 10% of your income, of what comes in as income, towards God's work. 10% of your increase towards God's work. And it's very interesting because this is taught in the scripture, but it's also taught in very unscriptural places. So if you talk to a lot of millionaires, if you read a lot of finance books, I've read a lot of finance books, very, very secular people will tell you, give 10% of your income. Like, not Christians, I don't even think they've ever read the Bible, but they believe, they have that principle of you give. I mean, look at people like the Bill Gates of this world, the Warren Buffetts of this world, the richest men in this world, but they actually have foundations where they give that money.
I thought that was for more of tax exemptions.
Well, I think you can do it for tax exemption without going overboard like some of them seem to. I mean, they really do give a lot of cash. And part of it is because if you read their books, if you read books about them, you'll actually learn that they've understood that if you're controlled by money, you will never be truly wealthy. It's only when you control money. And the only way you can control money is through your giving. When you give, you're actually determining who owns that money. It's a very, very, very paradoxical thing. When you hold on to it, you think you own it, money owns you. When you give it, there's a freedom that comes to you because you can give it. You get? Yeah. And then you can add value to other people. You start realizing, I don't live for myself. There are many people around me. I can actually become a blessing to society. So anyway, I'll tell you about the tithe. I'll just give you an example there. But the tithe was given by God's people to indicate to them who owned them. So every time they tithed, because they had a covenant with God and God would protect them, He would look after them. Every time they tithed, they were telling God, all this money I have came from you. So as I give a portion of it back to you, I'm giving it on the understanding that you are my protector. You're the one who protects me. You're the one who covers me, not this money. That this money is not even adequate enough to meet my needs. It's you who meets my needs. It was a symbolic thing, but it's a very powerful thing. In Malachi chapter 3, God says some very powerful things. He says, when you bring the whole tithe to my storehouse, I will do a couple of things. He says, number one, I will rebuke the devourer on your behalf. Now, I didn't used to know these things. Again, that my billionaire friend taught me this stuff. Huh? Yeah. I'm so glad he taught me in my 20s. He said, when you don't tithe, guess what happens? You still tithe. There's something called a devourer. So that the day now you decide, this month, things are hard. God has to understand. I mean, things are not. So what does God do? There's a devourer that He protects you from usually. And when you don't tithe, the Bible says, He says, when you tithe, I will rebuke the devourer on your behalf. I'll keep the devourer away. So God is like, okay, fine. You are saying you can handle. You handle. Okay. And the devourer comes in.
With that example, now it just sounds more mafia family style. Because
No. It's saying this. Huh? It's saying you have decided you don't want, because my tithe is actually my saying you're mine. Like you're my father. It's like you saying, I don't really want anything to do with you. I've got this. And it's like, God will never force His love on you. He will never force His protection on you. Why would He do that? He gave you free will. He wants to love you and He wants you to love Him freely, not because He forced you. So it's like, when you say, I got this, I don't need you, God is a gentleman. Imagine how bad He'd be if He said, no, fine. He'd be like an abusive father or an abusive spouse where you've pushed him away and he's just clinging on to you. So when you push him away and you say, I don't need this, He's like, okay. But then the devourers come in. And what do the devourers do? That's a real mafia, the devourers, because they take away from you. And what would happen is this guy would teach us. That's the day when you bought those nice shoes, and you're just walking, and all of a sudden the heel just comes off. And you're like, what happened? You kicked something. Or maybe you put on your nice new suit, and you're coming out of the door, slam the door, and the whole thing. And you're like, what happened? Well, the devourer, you invited the devourer in. And so He says, I will protect you from the devourer. But number two, He says, I will open the floodgates of heaven and I will let it rain. on your investments. He says, it will rain on your fields. So what does a farmer need? A farmer needs rain. Why? Because the farmer has planted seeds and they need the rain to accelerate the growth of the seeds. And I keep telling people, God never promised that when you tithe, he'll give you money. But he says he will accelerate your investments. He'll protect your investments and he'll accelerate your investments. That's what Malachi chapter 3 talks about. And so what does that mean? It means the things that I'm already doing, I'm applying myself to. As I invest, God is able to divinely accelerate them so that they can actually achieve 10 times more than I could have by myself. So I always tell people 9/10 of your income, because that's what happens when you tithe, you're left with 9/10.
Yeah.
9/10 with God is a lot more than 10/10 without God. Yeah. When I lock God out and I'm left with my 10/10, then that is actually a lot less than when I learned this, by the way, my life changed. Because I began to realize I need God. This money I have, my salary will never take care of me. It's never enough. My business income can never look after me. It's God I need, not the money. And so in my tithing, what I'm telling God is, God, this is yours. It's on you. My friend, let me just tell you, there are people who are running hard in this city. So I'll give you that example. When I was in school, remember I told you I wanted to be the first millionaire in my class.
Yes.
So I gave up on that dream because I was like, okay, God, I surrender. It's your plan.
Anymore.
It's not my money anymore. So I live like this. But I have friends who hustle. I mean, they've been hustling since we're in our 20s. You can tell when you look at the pictures, you just see the creases, bugs, and you drink because now you're fed up, things are not working. And I realize I've lived a very easy life because I live like this. And God supplies. And you know what happened at the beginning? Guys were bank managers, they had big roles. First of all, what God told me when I told him I surrender, he says, okay, that career you had planned to be, toa hiyo kwanza. It's not what I made you for. I want you to be a pastor. I was like, no, that's not what I wanted, man. It wasn't even my top 100 choice, I'm like, I don't want this. And God is like, but that's what I made you for. I'm like, sawa, I'll do it. So guess what? As a pastor, a young pastor, I'm earning very little. My friends are bank managers, they're earning a lot.
Yeah.
So their wealth is going this way and I'm over here and I'm feeling sorry for myself. But I am like, okay, God, this is what I did. I surrendered. Guess what happens with time? With time, my curve starts going upwards. With understanding how God's money works, understanding how to retain the money that God gives me, how to multiply as God teaches me this stuff, I start to see my wealth going up. And at some point, there's a connection. Today, a lot of my friends come to my home and they're like, how do you own a home like this? Because it's a dream home. Like they couldn't even imagine how to own it. How come you have the assets you have? How come you live the life you have? How come you're so happy with all this? We've got some of this, but we're unhappy with it because our marriages don't work, our kids don't work, because we paid with everything to get what we have. And I'm just trying to say God's way is very different from the way of the world. And when we choose to follow God's way, it's like God is like, okay, let me show you how to do this. So that's why I tithe. I tithe because I can't handle it. I need God to help me handle it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Makes sense. I feel that's something every person should be able to personally make a choice for themselves.
You make a choice, yeah. But I want to tell you, I mean, there's some choices, there's things that are choices and other things that are like really bad choices. So I've just come to realize when I handle money my way as opposed to God's way, that's not really a good choice. I actually end up hurting myself. And remember, we said God's way is He adds no sorrow to it. And what's wealth? So I remember once meeting a guy who was in his 90s and very wealthy guy, owns a group of schools, owns several businesses. I mean, the dream, you'd be saying this is what everybody wants to be like. And I remember sitting with him and we just had a chat. We became good friends and we started chatting. And he told me, and I asked him, so Mzee, I mean, because he's a builder. He was putting up apartments in Kileleshwa, all the stuff that everybody dreams about. But he was in his 90s. So I remember asking him, Mzee, seriously? Isn't this time to be retired? Like, you're not tired? I was like, where are your sons? They should be the ones doing this. You should be relaxing. He told me, my kids don't talk to me. They all relocated to the States. Others are in the UK. They've made their lives. They don't want anything to do with me. The only son I have left in Kenya is an alcoholic. And I can't even trust him with money. He can't handle this project. My wife, we didn't really have a good marriage. So as soon as the kids got kids abroad, she went to join them. So I'm pretty much alone here. And he's like, the only thing I know how to do is make more money. So now he's there in his 90s building an apartment block. He was very honest with me, and I remember just being I admired how real he was. But I just looked at him and I said, that is a poor man. That is not wealth. He can go anywhere he wants in the world. He has a big car. But he can't, it's like, who are you enjoying it with? You destroyed everything around you to get to that thing. It became an idol in your life. I'm like, that's not wealth. That's not what you want. And God's way is a different way. God's way is do it my way. You will have a loving family around you. You will have people who care about you. You will have it's like God's way builds and doesn't destroy you. The devil always tempts you with an alternative, but his alternative is always a lie. So when you say you have a choice, yes, you do, but you just need to understand that one choice will not lead to what it looks like.